Welcome back, Tribe. I have an interesting snippet here regarding will the Tradwife movement fail or why it'll fail.
We should return to a tradcon history in the future. Is that's just a dead end as far as you're concerned?
Well, I think we just need to be a bit more attentive to where we are. And I think we can afford to be a little bit more respectful of the dynamics within individual couples. I mean, it's generally like there are patterns which emerge, in any given heterosexual couple, that's been together long term. There'll be things which are more typical of the male partner and things which are more typical of the female partner. And and that's fine. We shouldn't be trying to fight against those stereotypes if they're what works for people. But I don't see much point in imposing kind of you should be doing this or you shouldn't be doing that. Because ultimately, people
need
work
guidelines. People do need guidelines.
But people, people can figure out what works best for them. I mean, here's one example. So, talking in very general terms, I mean, I've made the argument that the problem with tradwives as such is that they're just not trad enough. In the sense that what they're harking back to is a sort of mid 20th century template, which was actually only true for a very small subset of the middle class, right. And which is distinctively modern, because in pre-modern times all women worked, pretty apart from the very, very richest.
Right. So you're saying
so the idea
fucking send it further back, agrarian, grab your pestle and mortar and hoe and get working.
So the question I want to ask is what does a 21st century version of the pre-modern productive household look like? The house, where the basic economic unit is your household, and so you've agreed you're all in it together. You're there for the long term. Everything that you do for the team, and then it's.
This makes sense when you consider, again, for the real women that used to work in the agrarian past, or like my grandma, in other parts of the world that still really depended on the land, tilled it, raised animals, yada yada yada, right? That model made sense back then, and you saw the utility a woman had and the value she brought to a household, which was indispensable, honestly. Extremely important. You couldn't do it without a woman. What the tradwives are selling people today is like a Hollywood version of the 1950s, where she's wearing her little kitchen outfit with the flowery colors and she's over there baking a pie, looking her best, and that's all there is to it. But again, that wasn't the reality for most women. And that wasn't the reality of what most men were looking for. The only women that were really doing the bare minimum of just looking good and maybe keeping the house tidy here and there were the affluent ones, were the so-called trophy wives. And they had very little expectations placed on them because they had help. That's the truth. As a man today, you have to ask yourself, when you say you want a trad wife, what kind of lifestyle are you living? You want a trad life in the city? Doesn't make any sense. There's no tradition in the city. Your economic unit is simply the household. You don't have land. Now, if you told me you're living out in the country, you moved somewhere to the boonies, you got 50 acres, you know what I mean? And there's a lot of due to that land. You got a lot of work to do. You got farm animals, you got it all, man. And then you say, I want a traditional woman. Then I understand. I'm like, oh, this dude needs to plant gardens. He needs to get his crops ready for the winter. He's got to process animals. He's got to store meat. We're having a completely different conversation now when you say, I want a traditional woman. If you're a man living in the city in the modern world with all the appliances we have today, we got refrigerators, we got washing machines, dishwashers, dryers. I mean, everything has been automated and made it completely simple. So where do you derive this utility from now, that it doesn't take all day to fucking scrub clothes by the river and get them clean? You just press a button now and the machine auto does everything. The utility has to come from the real agrarian traditionalism that she's talking about. Now, in the modern context, if you want to say, well, I don't need all that shit. I just need a woman that wants to be a stay-at-home, that looks after my kids, that respects me. Okay, that's fine. That's not really traditional. It is when you look at the lens of the modern feminism that we're living under today, the gynocracy that is mainstream, that does make sense. You could say I want tradition in the sense of let's go back 30, 40 years, but is that a good deal for marriage under the laws or in the current system that we're in with court biases for women? I mean, the divorce courts and family courts will absolutely rip you apart. Is it worth saying I do simply so you could get somebody to stay at home, to cook and to clean and to watch your kids? Is that enough for some men? A ton of men have done the math and those calculations don't add up, especially when you start to become a high earner and you don't need a maid and a chef and pay them $1 million. You can go out and eat every day. You can have cleaners come once a week and it doesn't have to cost you 50% of your assets or more in divorce court. For the people down below, below the poverty line or lower middle class that don't have the financial ability to hire out help like that, I understand it makes sense marriage-wise, but even then, from the male's point of view, that's even riskier. You don't have the financial whereabouts to fight off a divorce, to come out the other side, at least with your balls intact, because once the court proceedings end, you may be one of those stories where the guy ends up living in his car, living in a dingy, like, studio apartment, while the wife and the kids have the big house you both worked your ass off to get. You know, it's like, there's absolutely no reason to get married in the West. And using the word tradwife in the West is kind of a joke with the laws that we have in place, with the ability for women to basically do whatever men can do. And modernization has completely cut out the need for all those basic utility functions that we used to have for the genders. What men used to do in the household, what women used to do in the household. It's pretty much done. So then what are you looking for? Is it a partner? Do you want a woman that's somewhat on your level financially? Or do you want a woman that's intellectually on your level? Do you want somebody to help you raise kids? A vast majority of people are staring down a dual income household in order to barely survive. Now you tack on a kid, you don't got much spending money left. That means your kids have to probably go to daycare. That's a huge chunk of your money. And then you send them off to public school to get indoctrinated. There's not a lot of leeway there. That I understand. You know, I think when you think about it deeply, the context of trad relationships in the modern world today and going back to traditional times can only really be applied when you turn your back on modernity and go live in the countryside. When you own a ranch. When you do all the things your great-great-grandparents used to do. But living a traditional lifestyle in the city, no less, is probably bound to fail. There's so many stories of wives just staying at home and bored because they have nothing to do, because it doesn't take all day to wash clothes. It doesn't take all day to cook a meal. It doesn't take all day to clean the house. It doesn't take all day to do the bare minimum things that would be needed to maintain a household like back in the day. A woman used to be busy. She used to be working. It was work, man. It took a lot of time to maintain a household while the man was out gone working. Then we automated everything. Now they sit on their ass all day. That's neither a good nor a bad thing. It's good because that's less stupid work. We've automated away the tedious stuff. But where do you find meaning now? When you look at it through the lens of a woman, you're at work all day as a man. Your woman is sitting at home twiddling her thumbs. All of a sudden she picks this thing up, Miss Tradwife, because she cooked you a meal and made you your lunchbox. And then tick, tick, click, 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 social media, TikTok, wow, brain indoctrination. All 3 years later, I want a divorce. He neglected me. He's never there for me. He's always gone at work. And we've heard those stories. We've covered those stories. How many times have you heard, which a man, it's mind-blowing for him, where he goes, I can't believe she said that he was gone working too much. He was busy providing too much. And a man doesn't understand that from the lens of a woman. It's like, I have no purpose. I'm not really useful. I just sit here at home. Because a lot of people in these relationships don't actually have kids because they can't afford them just yet. And for the ones that can afford a kid, you know, it's only the baby's only a baby for so long until kindergarten and school starts, and then they're gone most of the day. Again, where is my purpose? What do I do? I think that's why it's super important, man. If you want to have a successful relationship, if you're looking for that traditional woman that's just been groomed to just be a stay-at-home and watch the kids and that's it, and cook a meal here and there, then you might have a hard time making it through the end of your life with a successful relationship. You may need to get an individual that understands the importance of family, understands the importance of building a legacy, understands the importance of having a life outside of, not instead of. A lot of the women that we see divorcing in these videos that we cover, all those little highlight reels, they say that they want to do something with their lives. Their kids are grown. They don't know what value, what gifts they could give on the world. They don't know what their purpose is. They want something different for their lives. See, that's somebody thinking with like a low IQ of, I need to throw away what I currently have in order to build something new, instead of, because again, let me back it up for you guys. That person went their entire lives. I was the stay-at-home wife and I was here to raise the kids. And for a while that was all good. And then the kids got older and now I don't know what to do with myself. Midlife crisis, cheating, divorce, blah. So you end up in that shitty situation as a man. As opposed to, she's a mother, she loves being a mother, she loves staying at home to watch the kids, but she's always been tinkering with her own side projects, whatever small business, whatever ideas, whatever hobbies. Like, you need to get an individual that has their own dreams, their own hobbies, things that they love to do, but also wants to have kids, also would like a husband, also would like to build a life with you. Some of the guys that are getting these women, dude, that are just straight up bred for stay at home, cook clean, pop babies out, will be some of the ones that unfortunately, once the kids get older, it'll be on the chopping block against the law. And those are the stories of some of the dudes you hear out here. And they'll tell you in the comments below. I guarantee it. Watch. Some of the guys in the comments, let these dudes know what happens once the kids get a little older, get more autonomous, and your woman has way more time on her hands than she used to and doesn't know what to do with her life.
It's just a matter of agreeing, of figuring out how to get the best out of everybody. And I can't. I'm not interested in legislating for any given couple what that looks like. And in a modern context where most of us work in the world of bits and bytes anyway, I don't know. I can't make that determination for you.
Yeah.
But there will be a way. You know, when you form your household and you make your decision about how you can get the best out of your productive household, there'll be a pattern. And I think there's no shame in accepting that sometimes that can fit into a more traditional mold.
What was that insight that you had about women needing to develop a strategy for not having it all?
Well, I guess that's just a variation on talking about productive households. Because I mean, again, in Feminism Against Progress, the analogy I've given is weaving, which I think it's a very powerful illustration of what happened to women's work at the beginning of the Industrial Revolution. In that, for some sort of 10, 20, 30,000 years prior to the Industrial Revolution, weaving was always women's work, and there are solid practical reasons for that. Weaving is something. I mean, a household needs textiles, right? You know, you don't have textile factories. Somebody needs to make textiles. You know, you need them for clothes and you need them for all sorts of different things. So somebody's got to do the weaving. And somebody's also got to look after the kids. Happily, weaving and looking after kids are fairly compatible because you can raise a loom off the floor. You can put down your repetitive, you can do it whilst keeping an eye on, you know, toddlers or small people running around. And it's interruptible and it's social. So it's ideal work to be getting on with while you've also got small children underfoot. And so for millennia after millennia, weaving has been women's work. But weaving was also one of the first industries to move out of the home into factories. And at that point, it was much more difficult for it to continue to be women's work. And you know, those working class women who went to work in the textile mills had real dilemmas on their hands because I mean, what are you meant to do with your breastfed baby? You know, and there are horror stories about, you know, how women tried their best to cope with that. You know, babies drugged with opium, or you know, left to starve, or you know, left in the inadequate care of. It was awful stuff. And then there are those women who respond by just saying, okay, fine, we're not going to make the textiles anymore, so we're just going to focus on different stuff. But the point is that weaving is a fine example of the kind of work which in pre-modern times took place within a productive household. And I suppose the question I have is, you know, what kinds of work, like let's say you want to be a mum, and let's say you've got small children around underfoot, what's the equivalent work that's a bit interruptible, that's a bit social, that's a bit you can pick it up and put it down again.
That's not what people think about when they think about have it all, though, right? You
can't have it all. Come on. Everybody knows that. Well, they ought to. Mm-hmm. Like enough feminists prior to me have leveled with the world. You know, you can't have it all. You know, you can have a lot, and you can have a great time doing it, but you can't have it all of the time, all at once. You know, you have to do some things one after another.
Louise said that she worked it out, and she was doing 40 hours a week of breastfeeding, like a more than full-time job of just that part, just that one vertical underneath the child having process.
Yeah. And that's not something you can outsource because it's not just food. You know, there's the foundational layers of your child's
mother making, child making,
foundational aspects of your child's capacity for self-regulation and your child's capacity for being an integrated person are laid down in those early interactions. It's not something which can be subcontracted.
Do you think that
profoundly important work?
This was something that Mary Eberstadt said to me. She thinks that motherhood's a mimetic desire, at least in some regard. That one of her answers to the birth rate decline is that fewer mothers beget fewer mothers.
I think there's some truth in that.
Yeah.
I mean, if you think, I'm trying to think, how many babies did I ever hold before my own? Not very many, to be honest, if any. It's possible that the first baby I ever held was my own, or if not the first, certainly very close to the first. And I was in my late 30s. You just think this is crazy. You know, there was not even that long ago, there was a time when you'd have been left holding younger siblings or other people's kids, or you'd have been around little babies, and it wouldn't have been frightening in the same way. But it's, you know, one of the reasons, you know, middle class older mothers like me sit there, you know, with our late stage pregnancies frantically consuming baby books is because we don't have that practice around us anymore, because families have got smaller and extended families have got more scattered and extended families have got smaller as well. So as Mary so eloquently explains in her, she writes a lot about the shrinking of the family and the atomizing effect that has and the loss that imposes on.
And then the comments say, it's not a movement. It's a few blondes who figured out a different algorithm niche to get attention. Real trads don't have TikTok. This trend will fail as a trend because it's just another thirst trap. Being a loving wife with traditional values isn't something you record for clout. And they have a point, man. It really is. It's an aesthetic that's being sold because it makes easy money. And if you're already a woman that's lucky enough to have a man that, can provide for you so you could stay at home, it's not hard to just turn the camera on, record yourself in a little flower dress, cooking up some crap and saying some traditional things. And the simpy culture that we have today will absolutely reward you. It's like the opposite of OFANs, where that pushes degeneracy, hedonism, and obviously hypersexualization, just outright adult entertainment, and extracts maximum value out of thirsty, lonely, desperate for attention men. So does the Tradwife sell a whole different kind of image, back to the glory days of the 1950s, whatever, when you had subservient, submissive, yes, Stefford wife type women that would do absolutely everything, wait at your beck and call, rub your feet, you're back when you get home, and it's just like you got sold a Hollywood dream. That was never really the case with anybody. Very few men ever got to experience something on that level. That was the ideal. That's why it was in a movie. That's why Hollywood pushed the image, because it makes for highly interesting entertainment. Things men would wish their lives would look like. No one wants to watch a movie that's exactly like their life. Mediocre, boring, and just more plain than they would care to realize. Are there genuine tradwives out there that record their day-to-days without trying to create a whole business out of it? Sure, there are. And those are probably some of the videos that have gone viral. The one and dones, like a woman. I remember specifically there's one woman, I think she was holding a baby, just, absolute, like stereotypical Hollywood beauty. And she had a giant baby that was super healthy. And she was stay at home and had a message saying like, when providing for your husband and taking care of your kid is like, is considered counterculture or something like that. And the comment section was just filled with women saying she's a pick-me, she's a this, mostly attacking her because she had a beautiful, healthy baby that was absolutely massive. And she herself was absolutely beautiful with a killer figure, even after having a kid. And it just pissed people off. Obviously, it's hitting at people's deepest insecurities of the lifestyles that they wish they would have. And that's another part of this variable that no one discusses, man, is that nobody's happy in society today, neither men nor women. Nobody thinks the outcome of fourth wave or whatever the first wave ideally had for society has been a net positive on society itself, on relationships, on marriage. All the statistics say we're going in the wrong direction. Men are more disconnected, more lonely than ever, pulling out and going their own way. Women are saying they're decentering men and they don't need men in their lives and they're strong and independent. And what's a man good for anyways these days? But they'll cry themselves to sleep at night. But the guys are furiously jacking off to porn at night, wishing they're constantly watching videos about women, but hate them at the same time. Women are constantly bitching about men, but getting pumped and dumped by chads left and right, nonstop. It's like, it's the hypocrisy in that we're living a lie. We're living the exact opposite of what we want internally on a deep level, but it's like we're living for what society wants us to do. Society's pushing hypersexualization on you. Society is pushing you to be a degenerate, to have a professional body count by the time you're 20. Society's pushing you to stay home in a dark room, playing your video games and watching porn all day. Like society's not telling you the things you should be doing to get out there in the world and make something of yourself, to actually go out and get happiness. It's not something that comes to you. You have to go out and get it. You have to create the world around you that will make you feel happy. Something you have to be proud in. That takes hard work, that takes direction, and that takes the ability to chase a goal long term through all the obstacles that could come about. But nobody talks about this shit. They just, we have the get rich quick schemes and the 6-minute abs and the 3 steps to this. It's like we want that magic pill right now. How do I get this now? How do I achieve happiness now? And that society, the hedonistic lifestyles that we all have, it's like that's provided for. We've come up with brilliant inventions to give people their dopamine rushes right away. But forming deep down connections, absolutely not. But listening to our instincts about a man wanting to be a man, wanting to provide, and a woman wanting to be a woman and wanting to provide is absolutely no-no. Society pushes feminized men. Dudes that like to wear dresses, dudes that like to paint their nails, dudes that like to put on makeup, dudes that like to cry all the time over nothing, dudes that are built like those cockroaches from Men in Black. Like, it's pathetic, man. On the other side of the spectrum, we push women to be like masculine, butch looking, got tattoos, buzz cut, face tats everywhere. It's just like the complete opposite of what we're looking for in each other. Women want strong men, and men want feminine women. And yet the opposite is being pushed today. And people wonder, again, with the expectations of genders, when we talk about what a man should be doing for the household and what a woman should be doing for the household, it's completely twisted. And I've been thinking about this lately too. What's the point of marriage in a modern day society if you live in the city or in a metro area? After seeing what some of my family lives like in the country, after seeing all those skills my grandma has and my uncles and my aunts and everybody that lives in the countryside and still knows some of those old world things and puts them to use, I can only really come up with one answer for that. And I don't even know how much I can steelman the argument of marriage is for the kids. The only real argument I have for marriage and why a man should get married is for the kids. And again, it should be for the kids, but not in the West, not in the country with court biases for women. It doesn't even hold up. And again, the other side of the argument's easy. Cool, just have kids, don't be married, but live as if you're a married couple. Why do you need a piece of paper? Again, dude, I'm struggling myself to steelman the argument of why any Western man in the world today, with the laws that we have in place, should even say I do, even think about it whatsoever. I really can't come up with one. The only other thing you can possibly say, which is like, it supersedes everything else, simply, it's religion. If you're the religious type and say, well, I'm Christian, well, I'm Muslim, well, I'm this and I'm that, and it's my religion and I have to do it this way, that's really it. But that's up to you in the current conditions that we're living in. And if your woman abides by the same principles, by the same religion, then it makes complete sense. But outside of the religious aspect, outside of children, there doesn't seem to be an argument for men whatsoever to even get married. Seriously. If someone's got a better argument than that, please share it in the comments. At least with our current generation and the values that they hold and the individualism and narcissism that people are exhibiting to the world, I don't know, dude. Does not seem worth it to me. And what do you guys think of the Tradwife movement in general? We'll see you guys on the next one.